The spice extends life.
The proponents of ignorance, inevitably and eternally shielded from any sort of knowledge about nearly every subject by the mental chains of dogma, have many a vested interest in keeping the maximum number of people they can as ignorant as possible concerning almost everything. Even worse, not only do they have this insidious motivation, but it is also accompanied by the need to convince their personal sheep, whoever they may be at the time, of a highly specific, unfounded, harmful set of a priori assumptions that have nothing to do with any sort of verifiable reality at all. To this end, these Chaucerian frauds have a powerful, if somewhat limited, set of tools by which they pacify, empty, close, and pollute the minds of any they can reach with their poisonous, willful ignorance. This brings us face to face with one of their favorite tools for accomplishing this, and yet another of the foundational falsehoods of creationism, the idea that the high technologies they use every second of every day are not based in any way on the very sciences they are trying to falsify in order to promulgate, propagate, prop up, and perpetuate their laughable dogmas with apologetics, which is all any creationist ideology from any religious viewpoint actually is. They do this by repeatedly pointing out, without regard to all the mountains of evidence to the contrary, that any inaccuracy or ignorance of any detail anywhere in any body of knowledge means a total and complete lack of any explanatory power that any paradigm in any place or time could possibly offer. Over and over again, they reveal their petty, petulant, presumptuous, greedy motivations by opposing only those areas of science that conflict with whatever creation story they have concocted, and then selling these polished piles of purulent polemic at exorbitant prices without any apparent shame, all the while soliciting additional donations from their duped zombie followers to help bring more into the herd. And, as though all this weren't enough to reveal them for exactly the sort of hyperbolic, hypocritical charlatans that they are, they then continue to bathe and glut themselves as much as they can from the overflowing chalice of benefits that the very science they are denigrating from total ignorance provides to them each and every day. Over the millennia, with the exception of the West in the past century and a half or so, organized religion has been happy to disenfranchise, marginalize, silence, ostracize, torture, kill, and slaughter anyone within their reach who contradicted any accepted tenet of any dogma for any reason whatsoever whenever it had the power to do so. Here in the 21st century, with human rights on the rise and the demands of mutual tolerance coming from every direction, with no small amount of physical force to back them, religion has changed its tactics, albeit only at the point of the sword and with great reticence mixed with obvious disdain. So, in pursuit of their goals, they're willing to tell whatever lies, no matter how gigantic, old, debunked, tired, completely falsified, and intuitively wrong they can be demonstrated to be. One of my favorite examples of this is when creationists attempt to falsify atomic theory with the polonium decay sphere argument, which has been so thoroughly falsified so many times that no one with internet access has any excuse for believing, promulgating, or defending it in any manner whatsoever. Further, even as the preacher preaches and the masses nod, mindlessly shouting amen, 20% of the electricity flowing in the building to heat the water, cool the air, and amplify the Vicar's voice comes from nuclear reactors, thereby proving every single principle in atomic theory and radiometric dating beyond any scrap of reasonable doubt, which in turn falsifies all the creation stories they might tell that has the Earth at anything less than 4.3 billion years old. This is, of course, also to ignore many other obvious proofs embodied in modern technology that also verify with total certainty that atomic theory, even with its few admitted shortcomings, is a highly accurate, useful, precise description of the nature of matter. Another excellent example of this Herculean hypocrisy is the fact that leaders and followers of nonsense are happy to trust their lives to smoke detectors, many of which rely on the radioactive decay of thorium contained within to detect smoke. Great crocoduck! How far into complete and total imbecilic moronity are they willing to slog? I suspect there may be no limit. Another area of science that creationists are generally happy to benefit from, acknowledge, and vehemently oppose, sometimes all in the same breath, is germ theory. I can't help but wonder how many creationists over just the last decade have been saved from detriment, disability, or death by this intimate knowledge of how nature functions only to disavow, deny, and denigrate the same body of understanding when it confirms evolution in the form of novel, improved, or altered resistance to antibiotic or antiviral treatments in the presence of verifiable genetic mutations that confer the new abilities. Even when confronted with nyelinase, an enzyme that we know cannot have existed before the invention of nylon in the middle part of the 20th century, they spew more egregious, erroneous, evasive, elusive excuses that are invented ad hoc by the dozens to account for why this unarguable, unassailable, unimpeachable evidence for evolution gleaned from germ theory shouldn't count as well. When shown the mountains of evidence that span from horizon to horizon and up beyond the blue of the sky until their arguments are exhausted, their usual tactic is simply to retreat behind the vacuity of deific definition that is absolutely undetectable by any current or future means whatsoever, as a tactic to ensure that certainty regarding the unreality of their deity can never be reached under any circumstances. Of course, this defense attorney strategy falls comically flat, faster than light, under the propositions that there might be a leprechaun, or the absolutely undetectable and the non-existent look exactly alike. Unfortunately, the need of the creationist to hold on to any vestige of possibility that their beliefs are correct, no matter how flimsy or laughable, can never be dispelled without a willingness on their part to seek and accept the evidence, no matter how uncomfortable or horrific they may perceive the truth to be. And so, they continue to spread deceptions, misinformation, falsities, and out-and-out lies to prop up their propaganda whenever possible. The fear of social rejection, terror of the impending destruction of the psyche, the horror of an unguided and uncaring universe, the revulsion to the idea of a fate that we are collectively responsible for, the dread of uncertainty, the desperate need for the love of a greater and benevolent being, as well as many other factors, undoubtedly drive the fundamentalists to continue to pursue these activities, which can be easily demonstrated to cause harm to societies by anyone with an 11th grade education. I guess misery really does love company after all. Whatever their motivations may be, whether stemming from material greed, fear of change, fear of death, inability to understand, desire for power, self-loathing, or even a genuine though misguided attempt to spread peace and happiness in the world, we must always remember that there will perhaps forever be an unending stream of the indoctrinated willing to destroy, subvert, denigrate, obfuscate, silence, and obliterate any knowledge of any kind that opposes whatever preconceptions that they harbor about the world for whatever reasons they may subscribe to them. These sheep and their shepherds must be opposed, at all times, in a loud, clear voice, without hesitation or apology, lest they be allowed to hand us and all those who come after a one-way ticket back to ages long past and unlamented, where there was no medicine, microchips, microphones, microwaves, macros, man, flight, space travel, or air conditioning. We, and all who are able to watch this video, are the privileged and lucky few who are now the beneficiaries and keepers of all the knowledge that humankind has ever accumulated and recorded. This gift of inestimable value, for which many throughout history have sacrificed their very lives, must be treated with the respect it deserves, lest it be destroyed, or, worse yet, fall into the hands of those who would use it to force others to abdicate their rationality and reason in exchange for useless fairy tales from before the Iron Ages, while feeling absolutely no sense of guilt or irony with regard to doing so at all. Over the millennia, with the exception of the West in the past century,
The spice extends life.